customers have been feeling with regard to the gold and silver. The price of gold is around $1,850 an ounce. The price of silver is around $22 per ounce. And I know many of us, myself included, had expected those prices to be much higher by now, especially given what's happening with inflation. After all, inflation is all anybody is talking about. It is now the biggest problem confronting the nation. You can't turn on the news without hearing a story about inflation. All of the companies that are coming out with bad earnings, they're not really blaming it on COVID or Putin. They're blaming it on inflation. Now, of course, our leaders in government and the Fed, well, sure, they want to blame the inflation on Putin or COVID. But the reality is inflation is here. It is a major problem. And that's exactly what many of us who have been buying precious metals were expecting all along. And what's very frustrating is now that we've been proven right, we bet on inflation. We bet on inflation by buying gold and silver. We bet right. All the people that said there was no inflation to worry about, they were wrong. Yet it's very frustrating that even though we were right, we're not getting rewarded for being right in the price of our gold and silver that should be much higher. Well, first of all, let me start out by saying they're about to find out that it's permanent, that it's not going to go away based on Fed policy. And in fact, even if you look at what Powell is promising to do to fight inflation, he's only talking about raising interest rates to maybe 2.5%, 3%. Inflation is 8%. Even if you believe the government numbers, if you don't, if you use real numbers, it's at least double that. How can you fight 8% inflation, let alone 15 or 16% inflation? In fact, I think Powell believes that high inflation is an acceptable trade-off to stimulate the economy. I think he's only willing to fight inflation to the extent that he believes he can do it without hurting the economy. But once he realizes he can't, he's going to give up the inflation ghost. Silver are going to go through the roof. But before that happens, make sure you're all in on this trade. Don't lose confidence, because everything that's been happening these last several years, this is exactly what we've been predicting would happen. It's exactly what so many people in the mainstream said would never happen. So we've got this thing right. Just don't lose patience. We're in the right trade. We just have to ride it out.